Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my booktube channel. Lately on booktube I've seen a ton of videos that are either hit and miss videos where you get a bunch of the books that you've recently read and you rank them based on whether you thought they were a hit or a miss. I've also seen tons of shipping videos where you get two characters, put them together and you see if you would ship them or not. Seeing all of those videos, obviously I decided I wanted to do something kind of similar but also merging the two together, and I have created Hit Me Up or Tap Me Out. Hit Me Up or Tap Me Out is a game where I'm essentially going to get a bunch of the characters from books that I have recently read, perused, glanced my eyes over, and I will rank them either hit me up, aka I would totally be there for them, want to be their friend, they're awesome characters, or tap me out, aka get me out of here, get me as far away from this person as you possibly can. These books are mostly in the sort of fantasy genre, as that's where I've been doing a lot of my reading lately, and I've taken 2 or 3 characters from the books just so I have a few options, a few different people to choose from. The very first book is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. The first character from this book is of course our main character, Selena Sardothian. Tap me out. Now when I say tap me out with Selena Sardothian, I can't say it with a heap of authority as I didn't finish the entire Throne of Glass series, but from what I did read about Selena Sardothian, she is morally questionable. There are some actions that she takes that I believe were completely brutal and unnecessary. She just seems like a really prickly, temperamental person, and I don't think I would get along very well with her if I did meet her in real life. The second character from Throne of Glass is Chaol Westfall. Now I know Chaol Westfall is kind of unlikable in a lot of the Throne of Glass books, but I actually really enjoyed reading from his perspective. I'm gonna say hit me up to Chaol Westfall because I think he's really loyal and devoted, and I think that would make for a really great person to be around. The final Throne of Glass character is Manon Blackbeak. I think Manon is one of those characters where if I took my very first interaction with her from the books, I would avoid her at all costs. She is terrifying and ruthless and painted as such a villain to begin with, but as you get later on down the series, she really starts to show this compassionate side, and that is why I'm going to say hit me up to Manon Blackbeak. I could use like a ruthless but compassionate and morally centered person in my life. The next book series is another Sarah J. Maas classic, ACOTAR or A Court of Thorns and Roses. Of course, I'm going to start with Feyre herself, and I'm going to say after reading the first book, I would say tap me out with Feyre. I'm just not a fan of the whole Stockholm Syndrome kind of romance thing that happened between her and Tamlin, but after every book after that, hit me up. She became such a heroine in her own right, she became so sure of herself and her powers and her abilities, and she became so intent on protecting herself and looking after herself and the person that she was with, allowing her to do that, and I have so much respect for her, so hit me up, Feyre. The second character from ACOTAR is Rhysand, and I have to say, hit me up. And it's not because he's described as this incredible godly man-being thing. It's because of his loyalty to the family that he's created and his absolute commitment to letting Feyre live out the life that she wants to live and look after herself, while also being fiercely protective of her. The next character comes along a lot later in the series in her own right, and that is Nesta. I'm gonna have to say tap me out to Nesta because I think she's just too much of a conflicting character for me. Whilst I did enjoy reading the book from her perspective, I just think as a person she's a bit prickly, and her commitment to certain family members also almost becomes a detriment to her character. Though I have to give her tons of credit for the female empowerment vibes that she gives me from the actions that she took in later books. The final character from ACOTAR is Cassian. I'm gonna say hit me up to Cassian. He's so badass, so loyal. He's got a real funny streak in the scenes that he's in with Rhys, and I love the sort of bromance that those guys have. Continuing on my streak, it seems, of hit me up, I'm going to Simon Lewis from The Mortal Instruments, and this one is another easy hit me up. Simon Lewis is geeky, funny, dorky, and a very devoted best friend. I love that he's got a bit of spice for himself as well when it comes to defending the people that he loves, and I think he'd be the perfect little addition to someone's chosen family. Next up we have Jace Wayland from The Mortal Instruments, and I'm going to have to say tap me out, Jace Wayland. I cannot deal with the whole badass, full of myself, bad boy thing that he has going in a lot of the books. Something about it really irked me. It felt really immature. And I get that around the time that the books were published, that was a really popular trope, a really popular character type, but for me, I just couldn't get behind it. Tap me out. Finally, we've got Clarissa Fairchild from the Mortal Instruments, and for her, I'm gonna have to say tap me out as well. There was something about her that just bugged me. She felt like a really wishy-washy friend who kind of gave up on Simon the minute something better came along. And I know her devotion to friends and family sort of recreated itself later on down the series, but I just couldn't get over that initial immaturity to begin with. Next, we are moving on to a recent read for me, which is A Darker Shade of Magic. The first character, of course, is Kel. I'm gonna say hit me up to Kel. But I think it's a bit less because I liked him as a character and more because I think it would be really, really cool to be able to travel between different worlds. And I think his fighting spirit and determined nature would be really, really positive impacts on anyone's life, so hit me up, Kel. Next up is Lila Bard, who I am again going to say hit me up. She was sassy, morally ambiguous to just the right degree. She was very self-assured. And I just loved her spirit for adventure and her absolute drive to get out of the state that she was in and make herself better. Moving on to From Blood and Ash, next up is Penelope Balfour, or Poppy as she's more commonly known in the books. It's really, really hard to say anything but tap me out for this character or any of the characters from Blood and Ash because I didn't love the whole series in itself. Poppy's borderline obsession with her love interest in the book really irked me, and I had a lot of issues with her sort of flirtation with her love interest's best friend. I also didn't understand the whole I want to stab you all the time romantic trope thing that was going on throughout the entirety of that book, so sorry Poppy, but tap me out. And for many, many, many of the same reasons, I'm gonna have to say tap me out to Castile as well. In addition to the fact that he spent the entirety of the first book lying, and I'm just not about someone who's willing to hide that much of their life. But I will say hit me up to Kieran. Maybe it's because when I've been reading fantasy books, I've always had a little bit of a weakness for shapeshifters. Or maybe it's just the devotion that he showed and the commitment to his family and also to this leader that sort of appears later on in the novels. Moving on to another Sarah J Maas book, the book that finally got me back into reading at the beginning of this year, House of Earth and Blood. Of course, we have to start with Bryce Quinlan, our main heroine in the book, who I am going to say hit me up. She's kind of feisty as well as very, very committed to those that she considers close. Her fierceness as well towards the end of the book in saving the world essentially is something that I really got to give her credit for, so respect to her, hit me up. Next up is Hunt Athalar, our romantic male lead and good old-fashioned angel from House of Earth and Blood, who I am again going to say hit me up. I will admit part of it is because I have a little bit of a girl crush on him after seeing some of the fan art of him. But again, classic me, his devotion to his friends and commitment to his job essentially, despite all the hardships he'd faced against the people he was working with, I've got to give him a lot of respect for that, so hit me up, Hunt. My last House of Earth and Blood character is Lahaba, who is a fire spirit, I believe, in the book. And I'm going to say hit me up, hit me up, hit me up to Lahaba because I think she was an incredible character. She was funny, she was quirky, she was protective of everything she loved, and at the end of the day she was willing to sacrifice everything for the people that she loved and wanted to protect. So hit me up, Lahaba. My last book series is the Shadow and Bone trilogy in the Grishaverse world, and of course my first character from this book is Alina Starkov. Tap me out. I'm not usually a huge fan of insta-love, so when it kind of happened in Shadow and Bone with her and the Darkling, despite the fact that she'd loved Mal pretty much as long as she'd lived, I had an issue with that. It weirded me out. I think in that first book she got a taste of the high life and she loved it too much to really question anything that was going on until way later on in the book. And later on down the line, when things became really clear in terms of who was the bad guy in this whole situation, she still sort of remained ambiguous about it and slightly confused about whose side she was supposed to be on for some of the sort of moments with the Darkling. And last but not least, we have Jenya from Shadow and Bone. Aside from the fact that it would be really convenient to have a friend that could just fix anything about your body that you didn't like on any particular day, which, I mean, sign me up for that. I also thought that Jenya, despite her sort of initial betrayal early on in the series, really came around. She was able to somewhat get past certain acts that were inflicted against her, and I have to give her credit for her strength and her willingness to fight her way back into the trust of the people that she essentially worked against for a period of time. So that is the end of my hit me up or tap me out. I think I have about 7 tap me outs and 13 hit me ups, which I guess is a good thing because it means I've liked a lot of the characters that I've read. Do let me know in the comments down below if you disagree with any of the statements I've made about any of the characters or their ranking on either list. Also let me know if you like this video and you want to see more of this kind of ranking content. Other than that, like, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified when I release new content, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!